Good morning, everyone. I hope you're enjoying Zenith Live. I've come all the way from London, so it's really great to be here. But today, I'm going to be talking to you about something that is so profoundly pertinent to each of us, not only from a cybersecurity or a business perspective, but really as a turning point in human civilization. And that's because we are on the cusp of a paradigm shift led by AI that's going to change the way that humans think about what is real. Now, this paradigm shift starts with one word. Now, this is a really clued up audience, a technical audience, so I'm assuming many of you have already heard it. Deep fake. It's a relatively recent word, but for those of you who don't know what a deep fake is, essentially a deep fake is a piece of synthetic or fake media that's either been edited by artificial intelligence or entirely generated by AI. So a deep fake can be any form of digital media. It can be an image, it can be text, it can be video, or it can also be a piece of audio. And it turns out that what AI is particularly good at when trained on the right data is at creating fake media of people. So I'm going to show you 3 faces, okay? And I'm going to ask you, which one of these people do you think is a person who does not exist? Which one of these people was generated by AI? So I'm going to do a poll by show of hands after I run through these 3 faces. So let's have a look. Is it A, this child? Is it B, this woman? Or is it C, the man? So by show of hands, who thinks A? Okay, the child. Who thinks B, the woman? Okay, a few more. And who thinks C, the man? Okay, so I think we had most hands up for B, the woman. And I'm going to reveal the answer. If you chose A, the child, you're right. If you chose B, the woman, you're right too. And I think you know where I'm going with this now. If you chose C, the man, you too are correct. Because, of course, none of these people are real. These are all deepfake images generated autonomously by AI. And it's not only that AI can be trained to synthesize or generate people who don't exist. When trained on the right training data, AI is also very good at synthesizing or cloning people who do exist, right? Even if that person is already dead. Take the surreal artist, Salvador Dali. He's been dead for over 30 years. But there's something he wants to share at Zenith Live today.
But there is one thing that makes me different. I do not believe in my death. Do you?
So this video is not real. It was actually created with the assistance of AI for the Dali Museum in Florida. Dali does not believe in his own death, but only because AI can make him say that. This is obviously done with the consent of Dali's estate, but I doubt that the surreal artist could have ever have predicted how surreal the future would become. Now, if I hadn't primed you, right, and told you that the Dali video was a fake, or that those people who don't exist were synthesized by AI, could you have believed that they were real? And I'm sure this is a very critical and discerning audience, so maybe that wouldn't be the case for some of you, but for the majority of people, they absolutely would believe that it's real. Why? Because we're primed as humans to want to believe something that looks and sounds right. It's a cognitive bias known as processing fluency. So it should come as no surprise that media manipulation has an extremely long and prolific history as a tool of disinformation because of the power it has to sway collective perceptions of reality. Of course, this precedes digital media. Take the Soviet dictator, Joseph Stalin, this chap right here. As he had his enemies annihilated during his brutal Great Purges of the 1930s, he simultaneously had them unpersoned. And this was a practice that quite literally involved them being wiped off the historical record by being edited out of photographs, as we can see in this example here. It was a manual process which required skilled artisans, and for them, business was good under Stalin. An entire cottage industry dedicated to the craft of unpersoning flourished. But, of course, it was not a scalable approach. In the 90 years since then, what's happened with digital media is that modern technology and digital technologies have made media manipulation easier, more accessible, and widespread. So a big moment came, of course, in 1990 with the release of Photoshop, ironically just as the Soviet Union was collapsing. But today, it's in the gift of billions of us to manipulate media daily, which we do via a device we hold in our hand, the smartphone, using apps like Instagram, TikTok, or Facetune. But synthetic media is not just Photoshop 2.0. It's not just an innovation on previous forms of digital media manipulation. It's a complete paradigm shift, and for 4 reasons. The first is because synthetic media is going to be perfect, right? Humans will not be able to tell the difference between synthetic and authentic media. There's even an argument within the AI research community as to whether we will get to the point where even AI detection systems will not be able to tell if a piece of media is synthetic, because the generative abilities of AI will become that good. The second point is, of course, that that deepfakes and synthetic media can be anything. We know that they can come in the form of audios, videos, images, and text. All digital media can be synthesized. Thirdly, because synthetic media will be automated. Those faces that don't exist, that was an AI model that was trained to generate new human faces. So once the model has been perfected, it can do the output generation perfectly without any need for human intervention. And of course, finally, as computing power and data sets improve, this technology is going to be ubiquitous. Synthetic media is going to be everywhere in our information ecosystem. So really, in the age of AI, we're looking at an era where machines will not only edit, but autonomously generate all forms of digital media. I want to show you a really amazing example of just how powerful this generative capability is becoming. Remember, we're still kind of in the foothills of this paradigm shift. This is DALL-E, an AI, arguably one of the most sophisticated generative AI models that's out there from OpenAI. It's barely 2 years old. And DALL-E has the ability to generate unique images and art simply from a textual prompt, right? Mind-boggling. Let's see what DALL-E generated when it was prompted with this. A bowl of soup that looks like a monster knitted out of wool. Now, I didn't even know what a knitted monster soup bowl looked like, but that's pretty convincing. As you can imagine, access to DALL-E is tightly controlled by OpenAI because it can generate anything based on textual prompts. You can imagine how it can generate things that are not as benign as fuzzy soup monsters. But This capability is really mind-blowing, especially when you consider that it's emerging at precisely the moment, right, when digital media has become the most important medium of human communication. It's the information diet that billions of us consume every single day, repeatedly. Think about this. We collectively, the human species, took over 1.7 trillion photographs last year. Just to quantify how large that number is, if I took a photo every second without stopping, I could take 1 billion photos in 32 years. But to get to 1.7 trillion, I'd have to take a photo every second without stopping for almost 50,000 years. Already, video has become the first and most important source of information for almost 70% of people who are online. Over 82% of internet traffic is going to be driven by video streaming and downloads this year. And mind-bogglingly, 6.6 billion people now own a smartphone. This is, as we know, a relatively recent technology, but that means that 84% of all humans now have the ability to not only consume digital media, but also to edit it and share it. So we're all becoming multimedia producers, whether or not we think of ourselves as such. So we are utterly primed to be disrupted by this paradigm shift, right, led by AI. But just how quickly do you think this synthetic future is arriving? Well, according to independent experts, up to 90% of online video content might be synthetically generated by 2030. Other experts disagree, because they think we're going to hit that number within 5 years. So by 2030, we're looking at a rapidly changing and different media and information ecosystem in which a single creator, right, a YouTuber, a TikToker, the proverbial teenager in their basement, can create synthetic content that is just as good as, or even better than, what an extremely well-resourced actor like a Hollywood studio can create today. And of course, as this technology becomes more accessible and popular, we're going to see a widespread explosion of synthetic media products, tools, and services. You already see this happening in the app space, where one of the most popular deepfake apps, an app known as Reface AI, has already become the #1 downloaded app in the US App Store and in 20 other countries around the world. In the space of 18 months, its users generated over 3 billion unique pieces of synthetic content using the app. And of course, we're looking at an information ecosystem and media ecosystem where we saw DALL-E, we discussed how OpenAI is tightly controlling the use of DALL-E, keeping production on rails, so to speak. But as this technology becomes more accessible and widespread, there's absolutely no doubt that synthetic media production is going to go off the rails. As AI-made media becomes the norm, we're no doubt, again, entering this paradigm shift. As I like to say, the future is synthetic. Now, it's going to completely change entire industries. Communications, entertainment, sport, and we're already starting to see some diverse early applications of this synthetic future. Take Messy Messages. It's an ad campaign which was put together by Lay's and UEFA and a synthetic media generation company, Synthesia, from London. And it allowed fans to create personalized messages from a synthesized Lionel Messi, the footballing legend, right, in 8 different languages, all with the clicks of a few buttons on a website. Of course, Messi consented to be synthesized by AI, and I'm sure he made a pretty penny from this ad campaign. But just to give you an idea of just how interactive and personal this content is, check out this messy message that I made for Jay, CEO of Zscaler.
Hey, Jay, what's up? My friend has invited us to watch the big game at their place. I hope I can make it. If I can't be there, enjoy the game. And don't forget to bring the snacks. Ciao.
Right? It looks like Lionel Messi talking down the phone to you. I made it, as I said, in just a few seconds on a website. So while the synthetic future is undeniably exciting, especially for creators, I think I'm really preaching to the choir here when I say that it holds profound risks too. Because just like all powerful technologies, there's absolutely no doubt that synthetic media is going to be weaponized. Which brings me to rule number 34. I can hear some of you laughing. As you know, it's a meme about the internet. And the rule states that if something exists, then there is porn of it online, and there are no exceptions. This is certainly true of deepfakes, which first emerged at the end of 2017 in the form of non-consensual pornography on Reddit. Since then, it's become a very, very serious problem, and it's an undeniably gendered problem too. There is absolutely no doubt that women are universally the targets of deepfake pornography. And it's not just celebrities who are targeted, right? Normal, everyday women have increasingly become victims of deepfake pornography. And because all that's really needed to synthesize someone into deepfake porn is training data, i.e. authentic media of that person, this is something that can easily be scraped off social media. So alarmingly, we've been seeing a trend where even minors are starting to be victimized by deepfake porn. But again, given this audience and this event, I know you can immediately extrapolate the significance of deepfake pornography, right? This is not just a women's issue. Rather, the ability of AI to generate highly realistic synthetic personas and to use AI to clone real people is a potent new cybersecurity threat. No wonder that the FBI put out an alert last year saying that it was almost certain that synthetic content will be leveraged in cyber and foreign influence operations in the next 12 to 18 months. Think about what synthetic media will do for spear phishing, social engineering attacks, or how they might compromise identity verification systems. But apart from the profound and obvious cybersecurity threat, there is even an existential societal risk inherent in the age of AI with synthetic media because of the way that AI can distort perceptions of reality. Because it's not that everything can be faked. We realize that's a risk. But it's not only that everything can be faked. If we understand that everything can be faked, then nothing has to be real. Everything that's authentic can more easily be dismissed as a deepfake. This is a phenomenon which is known as the liar's dividend, and we're already starting to see it cropping up more frequently. Take the George Floyd death video. I mean, when that video emerged in 2020, just at the start of lockdown, it was so visceral, it was so awful, it was so horrific, right, that it united millions of people together in protest. Not just in the United States, but all around the world. At the time, I just released my book, Deepfakes, and I remember telling my husband, it's not going to be long until a video, even this seismic, is going to be contested as valid or true. But even I was surprised at how quickly that happened. And from a very unlikely source, too. Dr. Winnie Hartstrong was a PhD-holding candidate standing in 2020 to be elected to the US House of Representatives. And she campaigned very publicly that the George Floyd death video was a deepfake hoax, right? And she argued that it was created in order to stir up racial tensions. In a 23-page investigative report, she argued that George Floyd had actually died in 2016, and that the man you see in the video is actually the retired NBA player, Steven Jackson, who had been deepfaked to look like Floyd. As she concluded, no one in the video is really one person, but they're all digital composites of two or more people using deepfake technology. I think the majority of us in this room, I'm going to wager to say everybody in this room, can probably agree that George Floyd did die in 2020. But as we enter the age of AI and synthetic media becomes ubiquitous, will we be able to reach such a consensus? If we really cannot distinguish synthetic from authentic, can we trust anything? Or are we facing what I call a no-trust future? Again, given the conference and what you've heard so far, I think we can all agree that a no-trust future would be an existential threat to society, because trust is vital to the functioning of society. So what we want to do is to move away from the no-trust future to a zero-trust future. So this ideal that you talk about in cybersecurity, right, zero trust, that nothing should be trusted until it's verified, actually needs to be applied as a strategic guiding principle for the entire information ecosystem and the way that we think about it. Essentially, this approach is about being critical whilst not becoming cynical. And very concretely, what this approach may look like, proactive approach may look like when it comes to the future of synthetic media, is by building this media provenance and authentication approach. It's an approach which is being pioneered by a community of entrepreneurs and companies. I'm really proud to be a part of this community. And essentially, what we want to do is to make sure that media can be authenticated at capture. Right? TruePic, a company that I advise, built the world's first secure capture technology that can authenticate media at inception, when it's created, either through a smartphone app or through their SDK, which can be deployed on any platform, or by actually integrating it into the lens of a camera. There's numerous applications of secure capture. For instance, reporters will definitely need secure capture in order to record events, but businesses will need secure capture too, in order to authenticate and validate processes like insurance claims. And it will become increasingly important also for identity, digital identity verification. But the second part of this approach is about building and adopting standards for media provenance. So the idea that every piece of media, whether it's synthetic or authentic, comes with a chain of provenance showing where did this come from, who created it, and how has it been edited throughout its lifetime. And the C2PA is an organization which has only been set up about 2 years ago, and it includes members like Microsoft, BBC, Intel, ARM. They're already building an open standard for media provenance. And even policymakers are starting to cotton on. It was only last week that the EU updated its code on disinformation, and for the first time, this included a commitment to empower users with tools to assess the provenance, edit history, and authenticity of all digital content. So the pendulum is shifting. So I'd like to end perhaps on a broader point, which I think will ring true to everybody in this room. And that is that we're just entering this era of profound tech-led change, right? We will arguably experience more change in our single lifetime than the entirety of humanity that came before us had experienced. The age of AI presents a tipping point. As I keep saying, this is a paradigm shift, so we have to think differently about how we need to do things. At the heart of the age of AI lies an ancient philosophical question, namely, what is the nature of reality? And now we need to start thinking about how AI will distort our perceptions of it. Whilst we can't predict the future for certain, what we can do is we can certainly prepare. So let's prepare for a zero-trust future. Thank you.